If you're like me and you also have a tendency to bottle up your emotions, your default strategy to cope after a breakup might also be to make yourself as busy as possible with work and plans with people. I knew what I was doing. I knew I was filling my schedule to distract myself so I didn't have to think about the breakup or my hurt feelings. And it wasn't until I completed my training as a therapist and I learned how emotions actually work that I learned how actually harmful this default strategy of distraction was, and that distracting ourselves from our hurt feelings and ignoring them like this doesn't make them go away, it actually just amplifies them. And the longer we suppress our feelings, the longer and tougher our recovery is going to be. I know, for anyone else who's a bottler, this is not what you want to hear. I didn't like hearing this either, but not to worry, because in this video, I'm going to be sharing a different strategy to heal from a breakup that actually works and that allows us to truly and fully recover, not just temporarily while we're busying ourselves with work or friends. This strategy is based on the way that emotions actually work, which is that the only way to fully heal hurt feelings is to face them head on, reflect on them, and process them. Now, please don't run away yet. I know this sounds overwhelming, but we are going to break this process down and make it much less scary and much more straightforward. I have 7 habits for us today to process this breakup and accelerate our healing. And I've curated these habits very intentionally based on scientific studies on what truly works to recover from a breakup. So, you know, they're legit. These habits have all also worked for me personally and for every single person I've worked with who is also going through a breakup. And my hope for this video is that you can use these habits to create a new routine, to separate your old life when you were in that relationship to your new life where you are now focused on healing and rebuilding and using this experience to become a better version of yourself. Also, this is our last video in our February series on breakups, and if you missed any of the previous 3 videos, I will leave them linked in the description for you to check out. Now, before we get into the 7 habits, please make sure you have done the following 3 essential things. Otherwise, there's no point getting these habits started because they're not going to work unless these 3 things happen first. Number 1, you have already gone through that phase after the first days to weeks after breakup where you are just a zombie. You are fully sad, your brain is not functioning. This is not the time where we should be trying to put a positive spin on the breakup or trying to start any new habits or routines or anything. If you are still in this stage, please cry, wallow, eat ice cream, do whatever you need to do because you need to get this initial grieving out of your system first before you can fully move on. Number 2, you have removed any and all triggers that are going to remind you of your ex and cause you to ruminate. So this includes any of their possessions, any gifts they gave you, any photos. If you don't want to delete the photos entirely, please at least put them on a hard drive and then delete them off of your phone and your computer and then give the hard drive to someone you trust so you can't look at them. And most importantly, remove all social media triggers. Yes, this includes unfollowing or blocking them. And there was actually a study done to show that holding onto virtual possessions of our ex, so this includes their social media accounts, negatively impacts post-breakup recovery. And finally, number 3, you have blocked all other channels of communication. So their phone number, their email, any other messaging apps, just making sure that we don't have any way to reach out to them and they don't have any way to reach out to us. Being in contact with them still is obviously gonna seriously prolong our recovery, but even if we're not actively communicating with them, even just knowing that they could reach out to us or we could reach out to them is going to hold us back. Okay, now that we've completed the 3 essential steps, let's get into the 7 habits. Write and journal like you never have before. Take a look at this fascinating study that compared people going through a breakup who regularly reflected on it over a 9-week period with those who didn't. the people that regularly reflected had a stronger overall recovery. And this was thought to be because the more they reflected, the more they were able to process the breakup and also to rebuild their identity and a sense of who they are outside of the relationship. And these researchers gave this whole process a fancy term called self-concept reorganization. Journaling out our thoughts and feelings is one of the most effective ways we can reflect on our breakup and achieve this whole self-concept reorganization thing. Often our thoughts have a very different impact on us when they're racing in our head versus when they're written out in front of us. And sometimes all it takes is just having that distance from our thoughts to be able to get a new perspective, new insights, and a new way of processing them that we never would have gotten if they just stayed in our head this whole time. So I wanted to give us some prompts and ideas to journal on, and these are all designed to help us get that closure and get those insights. The first prompt is to write about the negative parts of the relationship. Breakups have this really annoying way of skewing our memory and making us only remember the good parts and the things that we're gonna miss. Writing about the negatives is gonna snap us out of this idealized view of the relationship and give us some much needed objectivity. Make a list of everything you didn't like about your last relationship. Everything about the person that bothered you or annoyed you, the red flags. What about your relationship was dysfunctional and frustrating? What about this person and the relationship just did not meet your needs? Please spend your time on this list and include details, big and small, because we're going to be revisiting this list anytime we start
to get nostalgic or start missing them or thinking about reaching out or thinking about getting back together.
We are going to be revisiting this list and it's gonna give us the ick so bad, and we're gonna be reminded of why it didn't work out in the first place, and it's gonna prevent us from backsliding, okay? The second prompt is to write a letter to them of everything you want to say in your last words to them. Just get it all out of your system. You can be as nasty as you want to be if you want. The key though is to not send it. That is not a power move. That's just gonna open up our wounds because we're gonna be talking to them again and we're gonna be fighting with them again. You can burn it, rip it up, give it to a friend, whatever you need to do to get the most catharsis and the most closure without actually having to talk to them. I have a few more personal favorite journaling prompts to help us process and learn as much from this experience as we can so that we can use these lessons to have a better relationship in the future. And I will leave them on the screen here, so please feel free to take a screenshot. I would recommend building a habit of journaling on one of these prompts every few days in the evening, or whenever you find yourself ruminating in that negative thought loop. Consume content about relationships. After a breakup, when we have so many burning questions running through our mind, like why exactly did it not work out? Why did that thing that happened in the relationship trigger me so much? Why do I keep having the same problems in different relationships? How do I work on my toxic traits? Your brain is hungry for answers right now, so let's feed it the answers. Over the next month or two, we are going to be doing a deep dive into books and podcasts and articles on love and relationships by the experts. I would highly recommend checking out anything by John and Julie Gottman. They are world-renowned researchers on relationships. Also anything by Esther Perel. She's a world-renowned relationship therapist. And also Jay Shetty stuff on relationships is actually really good. He's not a relationship expert in that I don't think he has the credentials of a psychologist or anything, but he's had Esther Perel on his podcast, so he's legit. Some books I would highly recommend to learn more about relationships are All About Love by Bell Hooks, Daring Greatly by Brene Brown, Attached by Amir Levine. This is the pop psychology version of attachment theory, but if you want the advanced version, then I'd recommend Attachment in Psychotherapy by David J. Wallen. How to Not Die Alone by Logan Ury. It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin. All life-changing books. Let's take full advantage of this time where our brain is searching for answers and is really in the best place to be absorbing this knowledge, and learn as much from the experts as we can, building a habit of spending some time every day reading or listening to a podcast. And not only is that going to help us process and heal much faster, but it's also going to equip us to improve our relationships moving forward. Talk to a therapist. This habit I would call a bonus because we are already reflecting through journaling. We have that expert knowledge from our books and our podcasts, but sometimes we just can't replace the value we would get in talking to a therapist who is professionally trained in this stuff and can help us figure out how do we apply all of this expert knowledge and theory on relationships to us as a unique individual. This is really going to expedite your processing and healing of this breakup. It's much faster than trying to figure it out on your own, trust me. So if you have the opportunity to go to therapy weekly or every other week, I would definitely take that opportunity and build that weekly habit. Stay connected with your close circle. This is actually something we should all be doing as soon as possible right after the breakup. Even if we're still doing those 3 essential things of getting the initial grief out of your system, removing all triggers and unfollowing them and deleting their number. Please do not isolate yourself. As much as you might want to wallow alone, it's just going to make you feel worse. This is one of those times where we most need that support from our close friends and family who love us. So please see them regularly. This is really a non-negotiable post-breakup habit. First of all, so that we don't have time to ruminate or wallow, but also because our loved ones are going to be so essential in helping us do that whole self-concept reorganization thing. They're going to be the ones to help us rebuild our sense of self and our self-worth because they value us, they appreciate us, they think we're incredible, and they make us feel like the best version of ourselves. They are going to be the ones to remind us that there is still so much love in our life and so much about us that is lovable, and nothing about that has changed just because we are no longer in that last relationship. Prioritize your health. A breakup is one of the most stressful things a person can go through, and there's actually even a stress scale called the Holmes-Ray stress scale that ranks in order different life events based on how stressful they are, and divorce and marital separation are second and third on this list. Divorce is like the worst and like the highest form of a breakup, but whether you were legally married or not, a breakup is still a huge stressor, and there's actually a good amount of research out there now to show that there are actually physiological changes happening in our brain and body when we are under this stress of a breakup. This study scanned the brains of people who had recently gone through an unwanted breakup while they looked at a photo of their ex, and the scan showed that looking at this photo activated the brain areas that are responsible for physical pain. So when people talk about how being heartbroken feels like a physical pain, they're right. There was even a study done to show that taking Tylenol can help reduce the hurt feelings of rejection. Now, this is not a sign that we should all start popping Tylenol to heal from a breakup, because there was actually another study that showed that Tylenol works by numbing all emotions. So it numbs the bad, but it also numbs the good. And we really don't want to be numbing any of our happiness or joy right after a breakup, or at any time for that matter. But I still wanted to point out these studies because I think it's really important to be aware that our bodies don't really know the difference between physical and emotional pain. They basically feel the same. Other studies have found that after a breakup, our bodies are in fight or flight mode, which would explain why we might have stiff muscles like in our neck and our shoulders, why we might have stomach problems because our blood is being diverted from our stomach to our muscles to get ready to fight or flight. Our heart rate and blood pressure can be higher. Our immune system can even be compromised because of the increased cortisol, which is the hormone that our body releases when we are under long-term stress. So yeah, our bodies are just not in great shape after a breakup, which is why recovering from a breakup is as much a physical process as it is an emotional one. So the time after a breakup is really when we need to be taking extra good care of our bodies with those good standard healthy habits of exercise, nutrition, and sleep. No, we're not trying to get into the best shape of our lives right now or anything. We're just trying to have a good, healthy routine that makes us feel energized and puts us in a good mood. Moving our bodies every day is really one of the best ways we can cope right now. Like getting in a good, sweaty workout where our heart is pumping is just one of the best physical releases. Also, our bodies are in fight or flight mode. That energy needs to go somewhere. Personally, I freaking love a hype breakup playlist full of empowering, healthy breakup songs, not sad and angry ones. Like, we want to be listening to songs like Good Good by Usher. Like, we ain't good, but we still good, you know? What we want to avoid is songs like, what's that song that's like F you and your mom and your dog? Like, I hate that song so much. Like, where's the growth? A good breakup playlist alone could probably give me as many endorphins as the workout itself. The key here is to do forms of exercise that you actually enjoy doing. We're not worrying about trying to get a revenge body and showing them what they lost or anything, because who cares? We're working out for ourselves and our mental health. So if you hate going to the gym and lifting weights and running on the treadmill, personally, I could not think of a workout I would dread more, but you love going for hikes in nature and going to classes, then do that instead. Do whatever forms of movement you enjoy doing the most and is gonna give you the biggest boost in your mood. For nutrition, obviously we're eating our chocolate and our Uber Eats, and we're balancing it all out with meals that are gonna fuel us and heal us from the inside. I hear the new guideline is 30 plants a week or 4 to 5 plants a day. We just wanna make sure we're eating in a way that's gonna make us feel energized and healed rather than sluggish and lethargic, especially during this time when we're already feeling a bit run down. Now for sleep. Sleep is a tricky one. After a breakup, chances are you're probably not sleeping very well. You're probably having trouble falling asleep or waking up in the middle of the night due to racing thoughts or just anxiety. This is where I think things like sleep casts can really come in handy, just to get our minds off of these anxious thoughts that are preventing us from falling asleep. Headspace, the meditation app, actually has a whole free playlist of sleep casts and meditations on their YouTube channel, so I will leave that resource linked in the description for you to check out if you'd like. Do the things you didn't do in that relationship. There's a psychology professor, Gary Lewandowski, who wanted to study how he can accelerate people's healing after a breakup. I would highly recommend checking out his TED Talk. It's got 2.5 million views for a reason, so I will leave that resource linked in the description as well. What he found was that when people who were fresh out of a breakup over a 2-week period engaged in what he called rediscovery of the self activities, so activities that they either gave up or did less of while they were in that last relationship, were much better off than people who just stuck to normal, mundane, routine activities. They experienced less loss of self, less negative emotions, less loneliness, and more positive emotions. They felt happy, relieved, energized, confident, and overall they just had a greater sense of purpose and acceptance of the situation. I find these results stunning, and it makes sense. Every relationship involves some sort of sacrifice, and maybe at the time we were happy to make that sacrifice for the sake of the relationship, but that was then. Right now, in the present, we are no longer in that relationship anymore. We don't have to make those sacrifices anymore. We might even be realizing that we were actually being held back in that relationship. We are now free to take that energy back for ourselves that we used to be pouring into this relationship and reallocate it to reclaim these parts of ourselves that we might have neglected when we were in that relationship. So I want us all to identify 3 rediscover yourself activities that you pushed aside in that relationship, maybe because your ex was not interested in them, or maybe because they weren't supportive of them. And for the next month, we are going to re-explore these activities and include them in our daily routine. If you love hiking, but your ex hated it, so you didn't get to go as often as you'd like, maybe you want to build a habit of going for a hike a few times a week. If you were dabbling in content creation before, but your ex kind of judged you for it, maybe now's the time that you dive deeper deeper into content creation. If your life dream has always been to get a dog, but your ex hated dogs, which if that's the case, then they were a monster and good riddance, maybe now is the time you finally get a dog. By the end of this month, after immersing yourself in these rediscover yourself activities that you used to enjoy, but that your previous relationship blocked, you will feel like you've come back to yourself and you will have built a stronger sense of self, that whole self-concept reorganization thing. And most importantly, you are going to be reminded of who you are separate from that relationship. Dedicate yourself to building a life you love. One of the weirdest parts about a breakup is that not only do you lose this part of your immediate life, but it can also feel like you lost a part of your future life that you thought you were going to have. Not my viewers though. We don't view breakups as a loss, okay? I will not allow for that. My viewers view breakups as a gain. Sure, we might have had a path and a direction with that person, but if the relationship ended, clearly that path was not supposed to happen anyways. So what we're gonna do now is we are going to be creating a new path and direction and a new vision for a future that just gets us so excited about life that we're not even gonna think about looking back. So to create this new path for ourselves, I want us all to complete my 1-year vision exercise. This is where you think about and write down exactly 1 year from now, where do you want to be in the following life areas? So work/career, friends, family, finances, home environment, health and wellness, and hobbies/leisure/travel. Normally I include romantic life in this list, but just for this next year, we are focusing on building a life we love outside of a romantic partner. And if a new partner who's great for us happens to come in during this year, then that would just be a bonus because we're already building a life we love. Mapping out our 1-year vision is going to help us to get clear on what exactly do we want most out of life and what matters to us most out of life. And that's going to give us a new focus and a new target to work towards, and that's motivating. That gives us drive. So please include details and allow yourself to dream, and full permission to go a bit delulu brain if you want. Now, once we have our 1-year vision, let's figure out what habits can we build to turn that vision into our reality. So for example, do you want to level up in any skill, and is there a course to go along with that? So maybe you want to learn about UX design for a career change, or maybe you want to learn a new language just for fun and for self-development. For the health and wellness category, maybe you've always wanted to give Pilates a try and this is the week that you are going to book that first class. Or maybe you've always wanted to learn how to cook delicious and healthy meals at home and this is the week that you're going to start doing a dive into some cooking YouTube channels. For the hobbies, leisure, and travel category, do you want to become a reading queen and tackle your never-ending TBR list? Now might be the time that you invest in a Kindle and build a cozy reading habit, and maybe you even want to join a book club and maybe meet some new people that way. Do you want to plan a trip to a place that you've always wanted to go to? Do you want to book that flight and make it happen this year? And bonus, if it was a place that your ex was not super keen on. Is there a business idea that you've been curious about? Can you look into it a bit more? Can you take that first step to building it? Is there a cause that you're passionate about that you want to volunteer for? The possibilities really are endless. The year after a breakup is really one of the times where you're going to get the most out of learning new things, going to new places, meeting new people, having new experiences, and just doing things that you never would have done now if you were still in that relationship. It's going to give you a new focus that's going to excite you so much that you're not even going to have time or energy to think about your ex because you're going to be too busy building a life that you love and you have a bigger picture in mind. Also, just the process of working towards something that's important to us is so energizing in itself, and it gives us a sense of purpose and fulfillment, and it just makes us feel so alive. And importantly, it reminds us that our romantic life is only one area of our life. It doesn't define us as a person. There are so many other things outside of whatever may or may not be happening in our romantic life that give our life meaning, and we can have a full and rich life on our own. I really hope that these habits are healing for you and that you enjoyed our February series. If you missed any of the videos, they are all linked in the description. And last week we did part 1 of healing after breakup. So if you are looking for more support with that, then I will leave that video linked somewhere over here. But in any case, as always, I hope you are doing well. I appreciate you, and I will see you next time. Bye.